Hi, this is Kamera. My first few minutes with God, day number 254, Ezekiel chapter 44 through 45. The man with the measuring cord, the measuring rod, he takes Ezekiel back to the east gate of the outer wall of the temple. The Lord tells Ezekiel, this here gate is to remain closed, never to be opened again. For the Lord has entered this gate, so it must remain shut. God says only the prince himself may sit inside this sanctuary to feast in the Lord's presence. So, yeah, isn't that something? Because God had gone through that gate. So, how about the presence of the Lord? He reappears again. Ezekiel always have a type of response where he's falling to his face and whatnot. So the Lord talks to Ezekiel. He tells him to take careful notice, and he tells him to use his ears and his eyes. Listen to everything that he's told. He said, I'm telling you about the regulations concerning the Lord's temple. And he goes through the regulations. He says, take careful note of the procedures of using the temple entrance. He says, give the rebels, he called the children of Israel rebels. He said, give the rebels, the people of Israel, the message from our sovereign God. He says, "O people of Israel, enough of your detestable sins." And he talks about how they had defiled the temple, how they had broken the covenant. And then he talks about some of their other detestable sins. You had foreigners who were worshiping idols. They were in charge of this sanctuary. They were doing detestable things that were totally against what God had told them. He said the tribe of Levi, the Levites, the men of Levi, they abandoned God and they encouraged the people to worship idols. Isn't that something to worship these other gods? He says there are going to be consequences for what they had done. Remember, the Levites, there were God's allotted portion to take care of ministering to God. And it's just, yeah, there are going to be consequences. God says they must never minister to me again as priests. He says, and they are not allowed to ever touch anything holy. Isn't that something? So there's going to be consequences. But then he says that only the family, during all this craziness, only the family of Zadok continued to minister faithfully to the Lord. Isn't that something? That's a beautiful thing. Zadok family was the only one, and they alone may enter God's sanctuary, and they alone are the only ones who can approach God's table to serve him. Isn't that something? So he gives them the do's and don'ts of them. They are the ones who to be the priests. They're the ones who are given the priestly duties. So Ezekiel's giving the do's and don'ts of them, those priests. How the wives, what type of wives they can take. They are to teach the people what is clean, what is unclean. They are to teach them about God's holiness. Isn't that something? They are to judge the people because they're going to be using God's procedures on judgment to settle any type of any disagreements. We're talking about the family of Zadok. Isn't that something? Out of all the tribes of Israel, all the clans that are within the tribes of Levi. Isn't that something? Then he talks about the divisions of the land, the children of Israel, how it's going to be divided again. Isn't that something? But there is a portion that will be considered as God's holy portion. And he talks about what amount of portion that is set aside for God's holy portion and for the Levites portion of the lands. Yeah. And he talks about the princes of Israel. The princess, plural, of Israel. He tells them they need to stop all of their detestable sins. The violence, the robbing, the cheating, they must stop this. So Ezekiel is told that he's supposed to give them all these things, these instructions to stop all of this, to preach these priests. And he talks about the taxes that the princes must give and they must pay. And he talks about their portions of their offerings that they must give to the Lord, the grain and the burnt offerings, the peace offerings. All the people of Israel, they must join in bringing these offerings to the princes. The prince must provide offerings for the celebrations, all the religious celebrations and festivals. Yes, so he talks about that, and he talks about how those offerings are to purify Israel, the people of Israel, making them right with the Lord. So Ezekiel is also given the instructions of these religious holidays. He's supposed to tell them how to perform these celebrations, like the Passover, that type of celebration, the Festival of Shelters. So yeah, Ezekiel's been given a lot to do, but God called him. God has equipped him. Ezekiel's faithful, and it shall be done. And there you have it, guys. That's day number 254, Ezekiel, chapter 44 through 45. You have a God-filled, blessed day.